Welcome to Collective Konversations. Today, we're going to have a conversation about a topic that most people try to avoid, but millions of people live with every day. Today is all about mental health. Not just hashtags, not just awareness posts, not just something we mention during 1 month out of the year. Today about real people dealing with real pain while trying to survive day-to-day life. Some people woke up this morning fighting anxiety. Some people smiled in public today while privately battling depression. Some people are emotionally exhausted from carrying responsibilities nobody else sees. And some people have become so used to the suffering in silence that they don't even know how to ask for help anymore. For years, people were taught to hide our emotions, taught to be strong. We were told, you'll get over it, stop crying, just pray about it. Other people have it worse. But today, we want people to understand something important. Healing does not begin with silence. Healing begins with honesty. Today, we're talking about where Mental Health Awareness Month came from, why mental health is still one of the biggest struggles affecting families, schools, church, workplaces, and communities, and where we go from here if we truly do want healing instead of just temporary conversations. Because awareness without action changes nothing. And one real conversation, one honest moment, one person finally feeling heard can save a life. So today, we break the silence.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you for that. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but the truth is, mental health is not just a May issue. It's an issue that is every day, and that's why I'm glad we can attack this. Sat in on a definitely beautiful event on Saturday, and from by the Deltas here in Beckley, the Beckley chapter, and they had a pamphlet out that was talking about May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So, I kind of, went off of that and really wanted to say it's still May and still, really, sit down and kind of attack this and talk about it and kind of first of all, just give the history of Mental Health Month. Started out in 1949. It was all through, Mental Health America, basically is what it was, and the goal was to educate Americans on mental health. And when I want you to chime in here, Chad. And before I mention this, welcome back. Welcome back. I mean, we're glad to have you back on. And we can talk about that a little bit later. With some mental health things that you may have been going through as well. But I think we didn't know about this. So even in 1949, I didn't even know that it came about. But first, it was Mental Health Week. It started out originally as Mental Health Week, and then it changed over. Right. And it was definitely talking. So even back in 49, but you got to think, I'm, like I said, 54. And even when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, right, I knew nothing about mental health, right? Nothing about it. So, even that. So to come up and say May, it's a good thing now. May, definitely speaking about it is a strong, gives a strong message, that, they're really making an awareness for it. Because I know we have a lot of months that we celebrate a lot of different things. This is very important as well.
Yeah, because there's such a stigma, and it's getting better, but I'm kind of at a unique age where when I grew up, it was the era of pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You don't cry, suck it up, and and I saw in my life and raising children of my own, I saw it transition, and that's a good thing. I think it's a huge thing because, I believe now the more I learn about it, I believe that we should look at mental health just the same exact way that we do our physical health.
Right.
If you care enough about yourself to go for an annual checkup, right, even though you feel healthy.
Well, I'm glad you said it because, I think, and now we're talking about 1949. Now we're getting ready to get back up. But, one of the things where many people were kind of institutionalized, we just had, the gentleman in there speaking with us about, how people were institutionalized, you know, in the past, and really ignored. I don't know if you've heard of West Virginia, Sharps Hospital. I've taken, I've actually been to both, right? And I know they've changed over now, but like I said before, that's when a lot of people were institutionalized in the old Western Hospital,
right.
or Sharps Hospital, should I say, into the new one, right? So, I mean, I know it was a little bit, and also when we talk about therapy, it carried a lot of shame and stigma to it. And I know that's one of the things. Plus, I mean, let's get it right. Communities misunderstood what a person's emotional struggles. You just said it, suck it up, pray about it,
right.
different things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and there was other help out there. And for me, like I said, just keep looking back at that 1949. I'm like, where did the information go? Really, I mean, and I'm sure a lot of it was, how would you pay for it? I mean, I'm sure. I mean, it doesn't say that when some of the stuff I'm looking at doesn't really say, but I'm sure that had to be a factor and involved with it. So, how would you pay for these things, right?
Yes, and like you said, in 1949, they at least had the foresight to recognize mental health week, but the treatment for people that they used for mental health, I don't think that did anything to encourage people to seek out mental health treatment.
Right, and now you said that. I mean, at that time, America at that time was, definitely, experiencing some major emotional struggles, right? World War II, family instability, economic hardship, trauma amongst veterans, rising rate of suicide, and then also lack of emotional education, right? When I say that now, take the war out of it, those last 5 still going through it. The family instability, economic hardship, trauma, with veterans still the same, and rising, suicide concerns, and also lack of, education, emotional education. Think about it. Those are just some things that, we don't even think about. Anxiety, depression, trauma, PTSD, PTSD, excuse me. I'm thinking something else. But we don't even think of those things publicly at times, and that people don't want to say what they're about or anything. That's why I said you'll be stronger. Stop complaining. That's not an answer.
Right.
Keep the family business inside of the house, right?
Right.
These are some of the things that they talk about. You don't need counseling. You don't need that, or people might think you're crazy. And that's, I hate that. But that's a lot of what the stigma was, back then. And so that's why I guess I didn't hardly even knowing anything about it really when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I can remember, like, it was kind of whispered about, and back home, kind of rural area, people kind of whispered about so-and-so that they take nerve pills. That was what they call everything, nerve pills, and, so that was like something that's just a sign of weakness and what it should have been was good for them. They saw a professional that recognized they needed a little help.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
So hopefully through forums like this and,
right.
And, recognize
right.
Mental Health Awareness Month,
right.
We can do even more to remove that stigma.
100%. One of the things that was created for Mental Health Month was, was to educate the public, reduce the shame, also encourage treatment, support emotional wellness. Which is a good thing too, and help people understand that they're not alone. And that's why I'm glad, because I believe, imagine they're struggling emotionally, but the world, you're asking the world for help. But then again, you get judged and not supported. That's terrible. Right.
Yeah. And when we know what that leads to, and I know better than most, that leads to damaged relationships. It leads to self-medication. And
self-medication. Tell me about that.
Okay, so I, people that, and I feel like there's a whole generation that's been touched by this. People that, like I said, they call it the nerve pill. They're weak, but the same people usually calling them weak were dealing with stressors of their own, and they were doing that with alcohol usually or some other substance. And, you know, in their eyes, they were stronger than this person who's doing it the right way. And so that's, again, something else that we have to remove, because if you don't get help and you're suffering from anxiety and especially PTSD and depression especially, it's going to have to be dealt with one way or another. And the ultimate solution is, you know, seeking out professional help and therapy. And, you know, therapy used to kind of be a dirty word. Somebody had really problems or really having bad relationship problems. No, it's a health checkup. It can be, you know, just like we go for a checkup.
Right. So now that we kind of understand a little bit about where Mental Health Awareness Month came, right? What about for now, why mental health matters today, though? I mean, it's one of those things like, you know, this pressure that people carry every day, this silent pressure people carry every day. What about those things? Because that's one of the misconceptions that, you know, only affects certain people. Mental health only affects certain people, but it doesn't. It affects everyone.
Absolutely.
I mean, it does. I mean, it affects, you know, children trying to fit in, right? Teenagers dealing with pressure, you know, of different type of pressure, peer pressure, all kinds of them, maybe even bills, you know.
Absolutely.
Parents struggling to survive financially, right? Entrepreneurs, you know, carrying stress kind of silently because of things that's going on. Church leaders pouring out onto others while emptying themselves. They don't mean, and that, you know, I always say that, you know, we have pastors, we have deacons, ministers, reverends, we have all these people, you know, they're praying for people, but who prays for them?
Exactly.
You know, I always think that too. Veterans battling trauma as well. Now I'm talking about today, right? Students overwhelmed by expectations that maybe their parents put on them, maybe they put on themselves as well. Workers burned out from exhaustion. I'm telling you, we got people now, you got to think, or, you know, you just said something about, you know, a person, you know, taking a second job. I mean, this is, you know, what we got into. I mean, this is not us yelling and screaming about how things are in the economy. It's just the way the world is now. I mean, that, you know, definitely the cost of living going up and things of that nature. So it's like, you know, and, you know, guess what? Sometimes the caregiver is never getting a break either. And that's something, you know, that it talks about. Because mental health doesn't discriminate. Let's get that right. It doesn't. And we might think that it does, but it definitely doesn't.
Yeah. And that is a big part of it, because, you know, as caregivers, that's a very stressful role in itself, and you know, the phrase that they really stress is self-care, and that goes back to, you know, seeing a therapist, whatever works to help them unload, and it's so important because they're helping so many. Like you said, there's so many, we should be able to help them.
And it is, and it's like, you know, the biggest, the person that's smiling the biggest, sometimes maybe the one hurting the deepest.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say this to segue through it is also kind of that social media thing. Everybody looks happy online.
Yeah.
Everybody looks happy online. I mean, you know, they living in the best, you know, they dressing up the best and things like that. But that's what happens, right? This culture that we you know, the social media culture, what it's made is, you know, people comparing success, people comparing their bodies, people comparing their lifestyles, right? Relationships, money, comparing all these things, happiness, right? So, and if you see that, it's constantly, you know, having people, you know, kind of live up to that standard. Last week we had talked about, you know, a statement called living for the Joneses, or, you know, trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? I mean, one of those things, that's an old saying, but it still kind of goes with comparing and seeing these things on social media, seeing, you know, people really wanting to meet these expectations that cannot be met.
Yeah, they're so extravagant.
It cannot be met. I mean, exactly. But it doesn't make you happy. That's what people think. I mean, does it really make you happy, right? But people fake, you know, perfection online a lot of times, and they don't have to, you know. That's one of the things we had talked about last week, you know, really, you know, having a job, just like, you know, Mother's Day, you know, really even taking you know, happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers out there as well. I mean, I appreciate everything you do. Like I said, I know it's hard at times, but and then when we talk about mental health, definitely, have to take care of that as well, the mothers and also the children as well. So we appreciate every one of you. But going back to what I was saying, sometimes, you have a pressure to look successful, right? And the validation comes from the likes and the comments. And a lot of times it doesn't work that way. I mean, this is serious to me. I mean, I know we laugh and stuff like that, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that part, but I would want this on just to, get laughs and things like that. I would also want to make sure we get the message out to others, right? That this is serious. We had me and Mike did one on Catch My Breath, which is an initiative about vaping, right? And the thing about it was, I mean, I understand. I knew going into it, a lot of people are doing it, so people don't want to hear that, and I get it. This is not me, or this is not this show or anything trying to definitely judge you. But then again, I want to tell you what's at the end of the road when you do these things. I mean, because that's the truth. It has nothing to do with me. Right. That's the truth. And it's like the mental health, if you do not, get help for these things, it can overtake you. It can overtake you medically, your body, right? I mean, and do the constant worrying and things of that nature, right? Just so we got to make sure we're not always validating off these likes and comments, right? There's nothing wrong with it, right? I hope they comment about this. I mean, if I mess up something like that, put it in there. I get it. I mean, I don't want to, put out any misinformation either, but I definitely don't want to, say something because I want a bunch of likes or want a bunch of comments, right? I want them because it's genuine. I want them because of the truth is to help other people as well. Yeah. It's not that. And, we have cyberbullying as well, fear of missing out. I mean, you're missing out part. It's like, what are you missing out on? I mean, once you really realize that, and that's a walk of a 54-year-old, right? Telling a 20-year-old, you're going to have, falls, you're going to fail. It's okay, but you got to get up. But you got to get up and try desperately not to make the same mistake again, right? And that's the thing, or fall into the trap of those things. I think sometimes and this, like I said, I don't think social media is bad. It's the intent of what you think that, you're getting out of it could be the way it's looked at, right? And that's the thing. So, one of the things I do want to speak about, not so much for me, but I even know unrealistic beauty standards, right? Whose standards are, for women, men, who are y'all looking up? Right? Right. 6-pack or whatever it may be. Hey, God bless those that have bodies of that nature. Sometimes it's not in the cards, for us, but that's not a bad thing. But still, exercise is a big thing as well. It's definitely a big thing for your mental health is to exercise, whatever it may be. I mean, it doesn't have to be running 50 miles or whatever,
And that's one thing I wanted to touch upon is, your mental health and your physical health are so intertwined.
Right.
And I have a recent example of that. I had a recent health scare.
Right.
And had a procedure but during the recovery process, I'd never really had anything that major. And during the recovery process, I just expected to be able to jump up, 2 days later and go back to doing how I've always done. And, as I had to take the time stretched out much longer than I would have liked, I could really feel my mood starting to, so that's a result of my physical health limiting what I can do and affecting my mental health. And, and then when your mental health is not in a good place, you're not going to recover. It's science-based,
And some people wake up immediately and compare their life to someone who is editing their life the whole time. That ain't how their life, you think that it is, but that's not even how their life is. Yeah. It's not. That's why that comparison, be very wary of it, because it doesn't always come that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, a lot of times, this is more on an athletic sense, but it could be any little thing. We see the finished product of what somebody does, but man, it's a lot of them do a lot of hard work. I always, say this about, like, people say little things about, I like professional wrestling. I liked it since I was a kid, right? But, people think that it's just them going out there, but they work at it very, very hard. I mean, it's fake, it's fake, it's fake. Those bumps aren't fake. No. And the things they do, and I'm saying, and they're pros at it, so you have to understand they work at their craft. Any craft you work at to get better at it. That's the thing. You can't just go out there and do these things, right? I was listening to something last night, even about what we're doing now, kind of going against it because it was talking about even public speaking and making sure you don't have those kind of pauses and things in there, which I'll probably do today, is knowing the subject that you're talking about, knowing it, practicing it. Me and you not being funny, I knew it was important to have, something about mental health month, right? And I understood that, and it fit us today to come in there and do it. But make no mistake about it, it's very important, and you have to plan for these things as well, because it's very dangerous, for any culture, especially the young people, to really have a comparison always, and young or older, right? So I really do want them to think about some of those things as well.
Yeah, and you always think about it, and exactly right. You look at these people on I'm old, Facebook or whatever, and they're flawless a lot of times. And nobody's flawless after you stop and think about it. They got good filters or good editing skills or whatever. Yeah. It's unrealistic, the point is. And, right. And we can't judge ourselves based on everyone else. But the thing I always told my kids, when so and so, look at this car, look what Yeah. I say, okay, did she post the picture the other night when her boyfriend broke up with her and she was crying and upset? When they're having a bad day.
Right.
And so that's part, the good part was part of her reality, but the bad part was too. But social media, we're just going to show you the good part. So
right. And I think it's a good segue into this, as far as talking about burnout.
Yeah,
burnout. And how to survive, through these. And a lot of times people are tired. Let's get it right. People are tired too. I mean, and that's one of the mental health crises we deal with today is burnout. People are mentally exhausted, emotionally exhausted, right? Physically and sometimes spiritually exhausted as well. And they're not, they're just not really living. They're just surviving, because they're juggling bills, family pressure, right? Multiple jobs, definitely parenting stress, relationship issues, which you just talked about as well, trauma, financial fear, and then community violence, and then uncertainty at times too. So sometimes that survival mode ends up being emotional exhaustion. Yeah. That's what it ends up being.
Absolutely. And then, and like you say, there's a ton of pressure on not just men and women to provide for children, to build a home, and that's real. You gotta produce, right. And sometimes that gets too much to bear.
Man, I just tell you, it's just talking. Some people have been arrested for years, not physically or emotionally. Some people, and that's terrible, really, because it tears you up. I remember when we, just this winter, we had got. And this is not a knock on this industry and anything, but we had just got into medical transport. Didn't know really much about it. It was just trying to, generate some income and also, create some jobs for others, right? Well, man, it was super, super stressful, right? And I found myself not even though I was sleeping, I wasn't. And I started, and maybe I'm not the smartest person in the world, don't get me wrong. Memory's not bad. But then when I was, during that time, I had like mental blocks where I couldn't remember nothing at all. And it was just an overload, right? And I was like, man, I can't remember that. And I knew it was coming on because it wasn't like I said, I'm not saying I don't forget things, don't get me wrong, but it's like I had to rely so much on my schedule, but I was even too tired to look at my phone to figure out what it was. Yeah. And I was just really tired and, and this not sleeping well. So I get it when it comes to, to being exhausted. Right. And getting that rest is so, so important. Getting that rest is so important, right? I mean, and that's, to me.
And that's another thing that they coincide with each other, sleep and mental health. Well, a lot of times when you're having mental health problems, untreated mental health problems, it affects your sleep. And it's a known fact that, if you don't get enough sleep, that affects your mental health. So again, it's all tied together.
And the burnout comes, and that's the thing, when we speak about it. Like I told you, I was, and it was a different time for me, because like I said, I'm not really always used to that, right? I'm not, and that's the thing. But it affected so many things, on me, and I knew, for me though, when we talk about spiritually, I really had to do a lot of. I know I had to do a lot of praying. Because I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't go through the day. I really couldn't, because it was like I told you, just blocks of just just going out. And so I was there, but I really wasn't there, right? Yeah. And that's what usually happens, because the pressure was just so much, on me. And I just remembered that, that I can't. I've done it when I was a kid. I used to worry a lot, and I just tell you, at 12 years old, I worried about things that I had no control over. And so much my body broke down on me, and my hair started falling out in patches because of it. Ulcer, right? At 12 years old, right? Thinking about these things. Now, it was a learning experience for me, because now I don't, but I felt like I used to, that's what was kind of worrying to me, because I felt like I did then. Just head spinning all the time.
Overwhelmed.
Right, overwhelmed, right? And it was one of those things. I did finally, get the help I needed, as far as, number one, by praying, and also by restructuring things to where it wasn't such a stress on me, right? And that was the thing. But, a lot of people don't have that. They don't have, they're overworked, right? Sometimes overgiving, overthinking, overperforming, because we have to, perform at a certain level, we believe, in order to, stay relevant as far as within our jobs, and to know that, we care about it. And definitely, but also carrying responsibilities alone is hard. It's hard.
Yeah. And I think that's another good point you made, that you develop different ways to alleviate your stress. And that can be done through real ways in your work, or in your living, your lifestyle habits. It's not just therapy. I personally believe that everybody would benefit from therapy, but there are other ways to help your mental health. And first of all, and that's kind of why we do this, is to talk to someone.
Right.
That's step one.
Right.
A trusted friend or confidant. Talk about it.
Right.
And that you'd be surprised how much that actually helps. Because I wasn't that guy.
That's right. Another thing, we can reach out, FMRS, Generations, Family Options, Life Strategies. I'm sure there's more, right? And so if I'm missed them, I'm sorry.
Right.
Get to asking people about some of these places that are right around here, right down the street from you, to get some help if you need that, right? Because if that burnout, if you don't do it, that's definitely feeling emotionally numb happens, loss of motivation. So basically, it's not. It appeared to look like people are being lazy. They're just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They're overwhelmed. They're overloaded, man. And that's
reached their limit,
right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So and like I said, I had all those. Really, I was forgetting everything, like I said before, brain fog. That's what I'm saying. The brain fog was real,
right.
Just mentally overwhelmed, constantly overthinking. I was a lot, there's a lot to it. And just feeling like, I remember the day, and just like I said, this is not a knock on medical transport at all, but it wasn't an avenue that I'm glad I went down it, but it's not an avenue I probably would do again. But it was one of those things that, it was a big relief when I knew we scaled it down to where we could manage it, and the anxiety went down. Exactly, it went down a lot.
Yeah, and that's that's part of, I think, maintaining a good mental health, is knowing when to pump the brakes. Know when to take a little break. By the time I was 23, I had a mortgage, and a baby and was trying to, raise her right and pay the bills, and they're in. Seemingly, it looked like I handled it just fine.
Right.
But that much pressure every day, and then like every day, I was to the point where if I don't put in 15 hours today, we're gonna be, and a lot of that was self-imposed, but it was real. To me, I felt it, and that's just too much pressure. That was too much pressure for me to carry at that time.
Right.
So I was definitely burnt, feeling the burnout, and back then I didn't use healthy coping strategies to deal with all that pressure, and now I'm thankful that and I feel like the stigma that was always attached to that prevented me from getting the help I needed, and so I'm just thankful that now we're getting away from that. And that's a healthier option. That's the options I use now. And that's
the silence I think hurts.
Exactly.
Not trying to segue into this show. Break the silence. Talk about it, right? Yeah. Don't just put, we talked about it in February. Okay, that's good. We'll be fine. We check that. No, talk about it, because I think, the struggle we have is the shame that's attached to the struggle at times. And that's why I said, and many people, they not only battle like depression, they're battling anxiety, trauma, different things like that we talked about before. That's why the stigma, is something we're trying to break, because of society, how they label it. And I think it's getting better. I really believe that. It's getting better in the younger, in that some of the younger, circles is getting a lot better when it comes to that. And that's the thing, getting the mental health and understand. I know a lot of colleges have, definitely counseling on campus for these things as well. I mean, I know, personally, me and my daughter, things like that. I mean, reaching out for her to get these things to be, something she can go, kind of talk to somebody about some things. I mean, I don't see anything that's weak. It's not crazy. Definitely, it's not, it's not unstable. But I think that'll help, right?
Right. And it's good, because more and more people that, the most successful among us go routinely for some sort of therapy session, and they don't necessarily go because they feel like they have any certain mental health problem. They go because it actually helps their performance.
Right. That's the thing. I mean,
it's not only just a Band-Aid to help a problem. It's actually can be an enhancement.
Right. So they don't have to, feel comfortable with pretending. They need to heal by breaking the silence, by speaking about some of the things that's going on with them. But it's still uncomfortable, and people still don't want to. And I think it's a fear of judgment. I really believe that. It's a fear of judgment. And that's the thing, because they don't want to be misunderstood or being embarrassed or, or looking weak or losing respect. And it's not that, it's really, treated different. And I get it, but to me, it's like, I commend those who come up and, kind of come up and want to handle their mental health. Mm-hmm. I do. But like I said, it's still looked at in certain circles. It's like, what's that mean? I've heard, I'm sure you have heard a lot of some of the athletes now coming out speaking about it. Right.
That's a great thing.
Right. But it's still on the backside.
Right. They still get some backlash.
Right. On the backside. Yeah. It's like, but that's the thing. I mean, I don't get it. But people they're more prone rather talk about their physical pain than they do their emotional pain, though.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because we accept, a broken arm.
Right.
We can see that. We can, we know that hurts.
Right.
But we can't feel that emotional hurt that person. We can't see it. But it's there. It's very real. And like you said, I think the more we break the silence, the more likely people are. I have seen it improve, and I'm thankful for that. But it does need to continue to improve.
Right. And sometimes I think strength is kind of misunderstood as well. Yeah. That not never crying or never struggling or, never showing emotion. That's the thing. you know, I always say it's not funny, but when I used to umpire baseball, when some kid get hit by a baseball, don't rub it, you know, don't rub it when they run down there. But I remember some kids did because, you know, it hurt. I mean, I'm sure ain't nothing wrong with saying it hurt, man. That ain't make you, you know, this tough. You still, the thing is, regardless of not, you're still running.
Yep, you're still out there.
Are you rubbing it? You still running
there.
Though. That's the thing. Right. You know, and that's the thing when we, you know, definitely talk about it. So, you know, we don't want to be an all-in survival. We want to be healing as well.
Right.
You know, and I think that's a lot of, you know, what happens too. So that stigma does damage people, right? And it makes them, you know, kind of isolate. But then it gives them other things, you know, anxiety, depression, different things like that, the shutdown. Yeah. One thing you mentioned, that self-medicating, substance abuse.
Absolutely.
Right? You know, a relationship problem, self-harm, like you said, and suicidal risk. And that's what you don't want. I mean, you really don't want that. Right. You know, and that's the thing, because, you know, silence doesn't relieve the pain it doesn't remove it. No. What did it do? It just only hides it still. And that's why you gotta get it out and talk about it. Yeah. I mean, I really believe that.
And you know, I think it's important for everyone to also keep mental health awareness at the forefront of their mind as we go about our day dealing with our coworkers, people we bump into at the store. You know, everybody's dealing with something, you know. And maybe I thought you cut me off in line at the register. Well, I didn't know you were in a hurry because, you know, you had a kid waiting on you to pick up. You know, and I think, you know, if we think about our own mental health, we should also extend the empathy to others. And
no, you're right. No, I'm glad
we're all dealing with something.
Because a lot of times, sometimes it's either it can be culturally or generational, you know, and those stigmas. So that's another thing, you know. This stuff can be kind of passed down. Not saying it should, but it could be, you know. Some of the older, you know, generations definitely the poverty, the violence, right? I mean, addiction, racism, trauma. And all just different things in order to survive. They thought about these things as well. So it's one thing to, you know, definitely understand that and, you know, not keep, you know, when we talk about private business, private, or, you know, pray and move on, you know, some of those things we spoke about, hey, you know, you'll be all right. Yeah. You know, those things, you know, no, you get the help you need.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's too much, then get the help you need.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, a lot of times, you know, what came about and understanding that as well. You know, it's like I said, for when you talk about the spiritual piece of this and understanding that as well, you know, I do, you know, people generally love God, but they also, you know, they could struggle emotionally though. And that's the thing, you know, and maybe you feel guilty about it. Don't feel guilty about it. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing it, you know, and these things are put out here for that. You know what I mean? Right. You know, I know we talk about praying, but guess what? There's counseling thing you can seek as well too. Yep. Sometimes not you know definitely not you know saying you know against it or for it when if it's individual. Sometimes taking medication as well.
Right.
Sometimes taking medication as well. Now taking prescribed medication, but like I said, for under a doctor's order. But then again, like I said, for knowing what medication you are taking.
Right.
All right. But knowing that it's just a part of the process, it's not going to be the be all end all. There's no miracle drug to stop this or anything like that.
Just in support of.
Right. It's like, you know, one of the things when I, you know, used to do counseling, it's like people that did have, you know, suffer from depression, sometimes they didn't want to take the medication. How it makes me feel. I don't know how it makes you feel, so I don't say that. But one of the things I do tell them is if you're able to process it, then it's working. That's the whole thing. When you're able to sit down and process something, that's it, because it's just a part of the process that it helps with. So now you're able to process and make the right decision, or even sometimes wrong, but at least you can think it out. And those are the things that it kind of does. So it's just, like I said, a part of the process. And that's a lot of it too. And, you know, that's the thing, you know, but people that have faith, they're not immune to struggles.
Absolutely not.
It tells you that in the Bible. You're still going to struggle, trials and tribulations. You're still good. So that's a lot of it as well.
And you know, that was part of the stigma was if you worry all the time, where's your faith?
Right.
You know, and that's I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I mean, if you broke your arm, again, back to the broken arm.
Right.
They're not going to tell you, just pray. He'll heal just fine. You know,
Right.
you'll go to the doctor, get it set, properly treated, right?
Right.
So, you know, mental health needs to be viewed in the same way.
That's it. That's it. You know, you're right.
But it comes to being able to be vulnerable.
Right.
You know, I don't have to try to impress you with this image that's so driven these days. I just want to be better and be healthier and help other people. So I'm gonna put it all on the table, and the more I do that, the more I find that people say, I've been dealing with the same thing.
Right. So
You know, it's amazing. You know, but you know, it takes people to start talking about it.
Right. No, you're right.
And then all of a sudden, so many people can relate to the same things. We all tend to think we're out there on this island alone when we're struggling.
Right. No, you're right.
But there are people dealing with the exact same issues, and we just have to be vulnerable enough to share that.
So now I want to get into real quick before we end. I want to get into about the youth, you know, mental health crisis at times, right? Because some of our youth are crying out for help as well, right? Cyberbullying, you know, depression, social anxiety, school pressure, right? Lack of mentorship, you know, trauma exposure. We're definitely in certain households that we hear about. We don't always see it, that we hear about identity struggles, right? And then also just suppression of emotions, those things, you know. And, you know, they use things online to kind of deal with that, but that's not processing them in real life, though, right? That's why, you know, definitely having mentorship programs, right, is strong, right? Definitely, you know, understanding their emotional intelligence as well, positive environments as well, life skills, learning, you know what I mean, community education, right? You know what I mean? And knowing their voice of empowerment is a big thing as well. And this is something we have to do. You know, and that's something I don't want us as adults to miss. We don't need to miss that. Asking the kids, are they doing okay? Definitely, if you're a parent or a relative or someone that hangs around this kid, if you see them, you can kind of tell, right? Some of these things and really attacking it then,
right?
Instead of waiting until it's too late, right?
And even then, it don't hurt to ask.
Mm-hmm.
You know, checking and but yeah, I agree. There's so much. And you know, I think I hear a lot like when especially teens are dealing with relationship issues, be it friend or romantic relationships, and you know, there's always a lot back and forth, and this one said that one, and you know, even me, my natural tendency is to brush that off. That's just a bunch of drama, a bunch of nonsense, because to me it is. Like, to me, I got real worries. But at this 14, 15-year-old person, that's just as big to them in their world and their reality
100%.
As my
100%.
concerns are.
So
that's the danger of, you know, we don't want to brush them aside.
That's why I said, you know, just making sure they're okay, right? Making sure we are checking on them, right? And having programs out there that they can come and make sure and crush the stigma. If stigma of things, because we're not doing it, if we're not speaking about our mental health, what makes you say they're going to, right? Definitely some of those. So
set the example.
Exactly. So, you know, definitely when we talk about normalizing things, right? I think what I see in the younger generation, I think counseling has been kind of normalized.
Yeah.
Right. Which is a great thing. So I know we're making strides. I get it. But we still have pockets of kids that aren't, you know, getting those things. I can't say where they live or anything like that. It's not that. But, you know, also, you know, definitely struggling with, you know, I always say this, and I know I'm not saying controversial, but it's one of those things like you don't always really know your neighbor. You think you do, but you don't always know your neighbor. Now you throw a kid in there, right? And you got some suspicions about what's really going on. Not because you're nosy, because you either got your spidey senses going on or whatever. And I always, you know, say if you really believe that, I think everybody should call CBS Today on somebody who didn't say that.
Right.
But when you know something isn't right, There's nothing wrong with, and here's the thing: there's nothing wrong with making an anonymous call and calling and to see what's really going on, and then let the professionals, which is the CPS, let them do their thing, let them do their investigation, or go do a check on the kids, right? And not only that, even if it isn't, maybe it's a wake up call, maybe kind of start straightening up a little bit, because a lot of that is that too as well, it's those things as well. So I do believe that. I mean, I do believe that. And I'd be amiss to also talk about, getting them in some type of faith-based discussions with kids, right? Community matters, prayer matters, right? Therapy matters, accountability matters just as much. Getting them into, some definitely some youth groups. So somebody was talking about Awanas the other day, if they still have it. Yeah, things like these, FCA, Fellowship Christian Athletes, things like that, that can definitely help. To me, some positive things that they can help, and also vet them. I mean, let's say vet the organizations your kids are being involved in as well, making sure they're safe. I mean, that's the first thing. Don't get me wrong. We need to make sure they're safe, and that's definitely a big key to a lot of these things. Really, also when we think about it, when we talk about kids as well, getting them their proper rest. Okay. For the mental, because it's hard, they stay up long like we do, right? We're getting their rest, exercise, right? Their boundaries. Also journaling, I think, is a big thing as well. Them keeping a journal, not for us to pry and look at it, but definitely for them to get the word, get it out. I mean, you're a writer, you know how it is. I mean, getting that thing, getting those thoughts, on some paper, and come from that way. Positive relationships, definitely those things. I mean, that's one thing that when my daughter, when she came to live with me, that's one thing that we spoke about. It was a couple of years ago, but one thing I spoke about was positive relationships, not caring, getting into these arguments on the phone and all that, steering away from that. All right. Because guess what? You're on the phone. Nobody's putting you on there. You're on that phone. Severing those things, those ties to, that drama. If you the one causing it, same way. I didn't say that she would, you being involved in it, definitely. So reducing those toxic rut environments, understanding that as well, being self-aware.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I think, and I've made the mistake, people don't have to wait till there's a problem. You can, therapy is very much a preventive thing. Preventive practice, and it doesn't hate. I mean, I encourage professional therapy, but you also get mental health aid by talking to trusted adults,
so
friends,
100%.
Mentors. That's and 100%. Honestly, that's your most exposure. You might talk to a therapist an hour a month.
No, you're right. I mean, you're right. You're right. Just hanging on, just definitely have somebody you can talk. You can talk to. And get the things you need to get out off your chest, without being so much judged or whatever, or down for the things you're saying, and that is true. I think that's one of the things, we just touched on a little bit about identity crisis and things like that. Same difference, getting out there talking to people about certain things as well. Not trying to internalize a lot of things you see because you're afraid and whatever. Getting it out and talking to people is a big thing. And then kind of navigating it that way, and I believe in just giving just like any other kid, just like any other adult or whatever, just giving the truth and laying the truth out there. Now, the truth sometimes comes from things like definitely with me comes from the Bible, but for others come from whatever. But I ain't, like I said, this ain't really a discussion about that, but stuff that is credible, should I say. Stuff that is backed up by evidence, should I say, just gets in the Bible. Sometimes it's not seen at times, but it's still there, right? I mean, the wind, but you can feel it. It don't mean it ain't there. I mean, those are some of the things.
And that's another good advancement that's becoming more and more available. There's a place here in Beckley is faith-based therapy.
You were talking 100%.
And for people that faith is the center of their life, that appeals to me.
Well, yeah, and then I told you, and the truth is, Just because that may be the center does not mean you're not going to have time to. But at least I know that because I can read it and it says that.
Right.
But I'll still be there, right? I'll still be there with you, right? But it doesn't. So it's not saying, well, shoot, I did. But that doesn't say that you're not going to go through that. Sometimes the things we go through make us even stronger. Not saying that you're trying to line up to go through it, but it does.
Right.
And sometimes if we skip, right, what we're supposed to, or try to cut or take the shortcut, we're going to fall back into it again. Yeah. I mean, and that's why. But guess what? If we handle it now, maybe we'll know how to handle it here in the future as well. Yeah. And that's what a lot of what it talks about as well. So just kind of it's been great. I mean, it's talking about this as well. I mean, and like I said before, it's one of those things when you get cranked up, start talking, it's like, wow, the time flies by. I mean, when you say these things, but we've talked a lot of about a lot of different things, right? But understanding that the biggest key to all of this is just definitely getting the help and communication. About definitely getting out there, not talking about your burnout, talking about the stigma, right? Talking about those things that comes from history. That's why definitely Mental Health Awareness Month in May, and I won't forget that, but it doesn't only stop there.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't, like I said before, and it said that, it doesn't stop there either. There's a lot of different things that you can do to kind of help with the things that were going on and things that people are going through as well. And that's, while, I think, having it on here and having even a platform to even speak about these things. I didn't say I was a professional, right? I didn't say that, right? But I know there are professionals out there as well that you can get some help from if you need it, if you need that time, definitely something and that's why I believe, this is bigger than a show, it's about people, right? I mean, that's what it's about.
Yeah. And, because we're not professionals, we see these things and live these things outside of a clinical setting,
100%,
in real life situations.
100%.
And and a big part of it, like you said, not only are we able to open up and be vulnerable with people, but we need to be able to allow them to be vulnerable with us. And that's huge, because now that strong support group that you talked about,
right?
So not only do we need to remove the stigma of addressing mental health concerns, issues, or just maintaining mental health, but we also need to take a view of it as when my friend comes to me and wants to talk to me.
Right.
It's
about
I'm showing him the same empathy that made me feel better when I opened up to him.
It's about preventing things. It's about restoring families when they break. It's about helping the youth before they give up. Right. This is what this is about here as well. Supporting leaders before they burn out. Let's get it right. These are some of the things. And reminding people that it doesn't, just because you struggle, that doesn't make you weak at all. It doesn't. It makes us human. Is what it really makes us.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we need to check on our friends, right? We need to check on our children. We need to check on our co-workers as well. Check on our leaders. Church leaders or leaders, period. You need to check on them. Yeah. And also check on yourself. That's the big thing. You got to check on yourself. Yep. Really. Yep. Because it doesn't, the healing comes when you break the silence, when you start to talk about these things as well. That's why. Yeah. That's what it's about. Breaking that silence and talking to somebody about these things. That's in a lot of different things. What happens is the communication barrier. The barrier is us just communicating, just speaking, because people aren't like, sir, that's okay. Yeah, it's communicating. That's what we're doing, right? For a common goal. And the common goal today we're speaking about is mental health and mental health awareness. That's what it was about, and that's a great thing as well. I want to thank you. Like I said, for praying for you. I thank you for coming on. I think like I said before, these moments we talk about, we're breaking the silence. They are important. Like I said, for while we're not professionals, that doesn't mean we're going to shy away from talking about it. Right. And putting you in line, if you ever would call, in line with a professional if you need to speak to them. And that's the thing. but knowing that they are out here,
Yeah.
and they do a wonderful job.
Right.
But it's just like anything else, though. It's just like all the rest. It's like the restaurants. Not saying it like that, but I'm just saying it depends on which one you like. I mean, and,
Right.
and you go from
And there are options.
And there are options, exactly right.
And you know, the great thing, technology today with telehealth, you know, there's Better Health has a whole network of
100%,
therapists. So you can pick and choose, you know, and insurances are covered. You know,
exactly right, which is great. Which I think is great.
So I think we are headed in the right direction.
I do too.
I think just we need to continue to talk about it and remove the stigma.
Right, and I think we will. We'll keep on talking about it. Like I said, I thank you all for joining us today. Just a couple announcements. Summit Collective, again, Camp Elevate will be starting June 15th and lasts to July 16th, and we're going to be having signups on the website, thesummitcollective.org. It will be this week. There'll be a QR code scanner. We can only take like 25 kids for now. I wish it was bigger, but right now we're going to, stick with that for now. So sign up. Like I said before, it should be fun. We did it last year. It was a great time. And we're going to, do it again and give the kids an experience. So we learned a lot from last year as well. Good things, of course. I mean, and we want to make sure they have a lasting impression on their lives, and this is something, even talking about mental health as well, talking about these things, but definitely it never ceases to amaze me. I mean, a child and the mass amount of knowledge they can obtain, and also retain, at the ages that they are. And I think that's a great thing as well. So I want to thank you all for listening, like I said before, and watching in. Look forward to the other shows as well, like I said before, and thank you all.